Greater North, and so we would, the schools would love to see the school zone extended just east of the roundabout and have that lower speed limit coming into the roundabout, and then of course along 300 all the way up to Madison Elementary School.
So there was some discussion last time about how far you could extend a school zone. I reached out to Laura Slusher. She is a traffic safety engineer at Purdue University. She works for LTAP. And I asked her, there's actually no specific distance. She actually said that it has to be declared in the immediate vicinity. And there's no definition of immediate vicinity. And she suggested that we talk to our city attorney, so I did that as well. And according to Scott Royce, who was the city attorney, said that there is no definition, but it would be what a reasonable person, or what the traffic commission thinks, would be the immediate vicinity. So simply put, we can decide what the immediate vicinity is. My opinion is if we have kids go walking down in a school zone, that would be the immediate vicinity of the school. But that's just my opinion. I mean, this is why we have a commission.
And it's certainly necessary. People are walking from the housing additions, and the only housing additions we have are to the east.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any, Jeremy, do we have any anticipation on any housing going any other direction from there? That wouldn't be in the city, though, that's county, right?
A little bit.
Okay. All right. So what do we need to do, is just to establish this as a, expanding this zone
Yes.
to the roundabout?
I think there would be some signage that would move.
Correct.
Would be kind of the physical aspect of it. Dustin, I don't know, is there anything else besides that we need to?
Not that I've seen, and I talked to our sign technician as well, and that the school zone sign is currently just west of the entrance of Tippy River Downs, so that would just need to be moved, which is very feasible to do in a timely fashion, so there shouldn't be any problems on our end that we see.
Now, does that just include the south side of the road? Or would that include the north side as well?
It would include both sides.
Yeah.
It would make that road a school road.
Okay. The road and immediate, in case we ever do anything on the north side?
Correct. And right now, it's a 45-mile-an-hour zone, which just with kids walking, it just scares
We'd
me.
like to see that.
So do we need to approach that as well, the speed zone?
Yes, because I believe, and Dustin, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we can lower it by 10 miles an hour. And that's what we have done on Husky Trail, we've done in other places. Going around Lincoln, it goes down by 10, which would lower the speed to 35.
And from my understanding from our meeting the other day, you're more so doing this right after spring break as kind of a trial run for the first.
Yeah, we're investigating doing a pilot after spring break, and again, it would only be the neighborhoods on the south side of 300 North. And so the south side is where the sidewalk is, and so again, that avoids having to cross anywhere except for up by the school, where again, we have crossing infrastructure there as well. So we haven't made a final decision yet, but that's what we're investigating right now with our team. In addition to that, I mean, I would just say in general, we seem to anecdotally be seeing more foot traffic along that pathway anyways. So just on a personal level, I don't think it's a bad idea to have a little bit slower traffic anyways, just because the sidewalk's a great sidewalk. It's connecting more and more residential pieces. And so there are people that come down and maybe use the school facility on the weekends, things like that. And so this might be a good move anyways for increased foot traffic.
So what do we need to do at this point?
So if we increase I guess we have to talk about where we want the school zone. My recommendation would be prior to the roundabout, but that's, again, that's just my thoughts. And, you know, we can also just do it just west of, just by Tippy Downs for that trial period and increase it in the, you know, if it's successful, increase it then. And then we'll have to talk about lowering the speed limit as well.
So the one thought that I had a little bit to that specific spot, Joel, is do we move the signage to just west of the roundabout where traffic's maybe already slowed coming out of that roundabout, and then it's already slowed down? I mean, with the original ask that we had was east of the roundabout, but I almost wonder if that, you know, you kind of forget about it after you come out of there. The biggest thing for us is we'd like to see it slow down before we get to that Tippy River Downs drive out on the 300 North.
Yeah, my recommendation would be right west of the roundabout, so as you're coming out of there, because if you put it on the east side of the roundabout, you may not be coming through and seeing that sign. You know, you may be coming from Sheldon Street,
Right.
either from the north or south, to where I would just do it as you're heading west, right out of the roundabout. So you see the sign, and then, you know, if we change the speed limit, you see that as well, so everybody's aware.
I'm good with that.
So you're,
So, I would say, I would propose that we move the school zone to just west of the roundabout to include the Tippy River Downs drive.
I'll second.
all right, so Dr. Robertson made the motion and Dustin seconded. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor of the speed limit starting west of the roundabout to, what road is that comes to
150 west.
150 west? Okay. Say aye.
Aye.
Lewis?
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? All right,
Thank you.
that is, started the school zone, the speed limit sign. Is there anything else that we need to act on now, or are you gonna wait until after the pilot to see how things are going there?
Right, yeah, we don't have anything else that we need to act on right now,
Okay,
so, yeah.
all right, very good. We'll move on to new business. I had a question from one of the, I guess you'd call them the board from the Little Tigers football, about the 800 block East Market Street, the Little Tigers field. During the summer and fall, the pedestrian traffic is heavy enough as it is, but with the senior center moving in, there's a possibility that they're crossing there. I spoke with, that property is owned by the park department, and I spoke with Larry Plummer. He says that they anticipate the city acquiring the land just to the east on the same side, and that there will be some parking available there eventually. Jeremy, do you have anything you can add to that, or Justin?
Yeah, I don't think it's not necessarily a given that we'll acquire those parcels. We have been speaking with the church to see where we can meet with, we're kind of restricted on what we can offer. So if they're not, if they don't accept that amount, then we would have to continue to use them, use those parcels as they permit us to. So that's kind of an update on this parcel. So we have been talking to them, but there's nothing set in stone as far as acquiring those.
Okay.
Just kind of piggybacking off of that a little bit too, and this affects both Market and Center. I was contacted by the director of the senior center, and I know the folks that have put the apartments up there and everything. I know they've done some programs for the senior center to try to acquaint them with the facility and everything that will be available for them to possibly rent an apartment. David had concerns that if you have elderly or perhaps disabled folks living there that are maybe in wheelchairs or have walkers or canes or whatever, more than likely, there's going to be heavier usage of the convenience store across the street, as well as people crossing there on Market too by Little Tigers to perhaps go to Dollar General. So just maybe something we need to give some thought to, be concerned about. I guess we don't really want people crossing willy-nilly, some people crossing to the east end of the complex, some to the west end and whatever. I think it's going to be hard for folks driving on Center Street. I'm not sure what can be done, but it was something he wanted to make us aware of.
Yeah, we don't necessarily want a crossing designated there for Center Street going to the outlet store or whatever, nor coming back on Market Street either. Rather do that at an intersection. Well, I've talked with Larry Plummer on it, and someone suggested signs and maybe to be put up. That might slow traffic down during that time period. Dustin, is that a possibility that during that time period that slow children playing or something, or?
Well, it could be. I mean, there's different options, but I mean that anytime you're sending, pedestrian traffic out, not at a mid-block crossing or not at an intersection is really worrisome to me. As kids dart out, people are not planning on having anything through there. There would have to be some drastic changes in my mind to keep people safe. As you said, handicapped or elderly people or going through or young kids, just darting out or going willy-nilly is something that mid-block crossings, that's why they're not in place for the most part. We do have a few of them in areas, but they're usually with lighted signs around the school or have a crossing guard with them type thing. But, that's a concern for sure.
I kind of look at this as two different issues. You have an issue on Center Street, and you also have an issue on Market Street. The Center Street one is a fear of something that might happen in the future. We don't know that.
Right.
They may not use that gas station at all, but yet they also may go there every day. But we really don't know that until it happens. The one with Young Tigers, first of all, I'd like to think it's probably Jeremy who put the parking on the south side of the road where the football field is. So I appreciate you thinking ahead and doing that, which eliminated parking on the north side of the road, which means there's going to be less kids walking across now because of that. Do we know in the past they have been using that church for parking? Are they continuing to do that? Do we know that?
Yes.
So really, that's going to be your only crossing for people, is just in that one area. And they still park, I understand the city doesn't own it, but they still park on the east side of the football field. At least I did when my kid was in that football.
A great deal of design went into Market Street for that reason. Like you have the curb bump outs, the lane widths are shrunk down, so you're only crossing about 20 foot for pedestrians. So a lot of those crossings were designed specifically to reduce that potential impact. That's what it means to crossing. I don't know, I wouldn't support just random crossing, but we designed in those crossings for a reason. Those curb bump outs create those crossing points because it reduces the risk at those locations. Now signage, we can talk about, I don't know
presently, there is no crosswalk from, well, near that church area there.
I'll have to take a look at it. If you're talking about immediately just jumping out of your car across, probably not.
Wood Street.
Wood Street.
So the first street east of Fairley Field, there are crosswalks.
They'd have to walk down.
Okay. Mr. Emmons?
In case somebody up north is listening to us.
Thank
I know that the city recently coordinated a project in that area on that that's east of the football field, and we put a new pump station went in as a part of the new development. And part of that work was we improved the drainage on that partial. Historically, it's my understanding people have parked on that, whether they're allowed to or not, but it had limited space because of drainage out there. So our project put a swale through, raised the area a little bit as restoration for the church, allowing us to stage the project out of that area. So I'm guessing with the work we did, probably made that whole partial parkable now, where it may not have been before. So you may want to consider that things are different today than they were a year ago. And I don't see the new apartment complex impacting foot traffic on Market, only because all of that entry is to the north. Their parking is to the north. It would take an effort for someone to get out of that facility to come down the alley to get to Market. So on Market Street, I don't think the new facility there is an issue for pedestrian traffic. But I did want to let you know that east partial that we're hoping to acquire someday is probably got more room on it to park now than it had in the past.
I think with that not being there, people had parked previously across the road there. And now that the senior center is there, they've got to walk a little bit farther to be able to park if they can't park on the south side. I think that was the explanation. Okay? I think, sounds like this is something we need to keep an eye on, and if there's, and look to see if there might be a possibility to put a sign on each direction, might be able to help out.
I'll see what I can find, what we can do there, signage wise, if anything.
All right. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to the added one we had here, mid-block crossing on High Street between Market and Jefferson, there at the Presbyterian Church. Justin?
I'll let the representative from the Presbyterian Church kind of lead the charge on that, if you guys can pull up that block.
Jill, would you state your name and?
I'm Jill Blackwood. I am an active elder for the facilities at WEPC. We acquired, I think it was the old county city building anyways, and tore it down and put in a nice parking lot. As you know, we do have an active preschool there as well, and that is where a lot of the buses come to bring special needs students as well. But we also do have, on Sunday mornings, a lot of elderly people that cross there, and they're very concerned because some people come flying or whatever else. We just thought if there was some way that we could get a crossing zone in there, because it could come straight across from the first, on the south here, as you see the first island, I would call it, I guess, that's what we call them at our store. It could come straight across and go into our front door, so it wouldn't have to be diagonal or anything. It could just come straight across. We do have a lot of elderly that park there, and they just feel that they would feel safer if they could have that. But the other side of this coin, too, is talking from the preschool side, I think it would be justified possibly because it is a school that's been around since the early 1970s. And now that we have that parking lot, it would just be nice to have that put in there just to remind people it is kind of a school zone. Even though I know they do come around the building and drop off there, but there are again, like I say, parents, teachers come across there, special needs students get dropped off there, and some other things. So that is our request. If we could get a crosswalk put in, great. It's just something we're asking. I appreciate you for listening to my time.
Anybody have any questions for Mrs. Blackwood?
I had actually met with, I believe, a maintenance representative about.
Either
last
Dwayne
summer.
or Joe. I know one of the elders, Joe was an active elder, he just went off, and so this got put on me, and I just wanted to nip it in the butt and see what we could find out, because we've had people asking.
Sure, and at the time, when I spoke with, and I can't remember which
That's
one
okay.
it was at the time, but we talked about it. It was shortly after the parking lot had all gotten refinished and stuff. But, again, the concern was being a mid-block crossing there.
Right.
Now, I did see that they do have, ADA ramps and stuff updated at both sides.
We do, and we also, that main entrance that we would like to come in does have handicap switches now, so it is a handicap door that's, so that's why you get more people in wheelchairs and everything else to come through there too.
Did you guys explore the option to move some of those ADA spots to the north to funnel them across where cars are anticipating? Because a little bit of our concern is that somebody will make that corner, and I understand that you've seen cars fly
Right.
through there, and they won't be expecting to see people. Even if we paint the road and put a sign up, they might not be, the people who are trying to target might not
Sure,
see any
sure.
of those things, and still there's a danger of that having them cross at that mid-block, even though they're doing it currently, but.
Well, and I think one of the reasons that we didn't put one up there is because we knew that, if I remember from what I was told, and Jeremy, maybe you can correct me on this, that the street project's coming down that way still anyways, and they would be putting a lamppost and things there, and we just thought it would be more feasibly, because our door is not at that corner, and which it's just more for people to have to walk to get to, I guess, is the biggest thing, especially in the wintertime.
Okay. Yeah, and I think you're referring to the Market Street.
Market Street, excuse me,
there's-
yes.
So we're looking at doing a multimodal trail along that corridor, but the crossing, we would have a cross for that multimodal trail, and then we'd have a cross just to the north of it for pedestrians,
That
at
makes
least as
sense.
it's currently designed. But it would basically be housed in the area where the crossing currently occurs.
It's fine.
So it wouldn't be going any further south, but just to give you an idea of where those
Sure,
things might
sure.
fall.
I just wanted to find out for sure if this is something that could be done. If it's not, I mean, we're acceptable to that, but I wanted to present it just because we do have a concern. Like right now, we have an elderly lady that actually 3 people go out and help because she refuses to come in on a wheelchair. She's so independent. But, then there again, we do have those preschoolers and teachers that cross, and they do come to that because they're coming to the main building, and that sidewalk may not always be plowed or whatever else, but the parking lot does get plowed and maintenanced and taken care of, so.
Any other discussion?
I had concerns with the mid-block crossing, with the fear that some paint will give a.
False protection.
Yes, a false sense of safety when there really isn't. Coming around that turn, you're not expecting to see somebody crossing, which is why we have crosswalks at intersections and not during the mid-block. I understand the request, and I understand why, but that's my concern.
Yeah, the convenience factor is definitely there. I know of two that I can think of right off the top of my head where there are mid-block crossings. One is over by Sacred Heart, over close to the PD, which is monitored by a staffed individual the entire time as that's going. That is mid-block, and there's one down on Hepler that I think, from my understanding, I think Zimmer actually put in. And that one is kind of I've been through that area a few times when you turn the corner at the four-way stop, and then all of a sudden, wham, here comes 4 people walking across and it's kind of nerve-wracking, and it's just things I would like the commission to take into account. I mean, it's not that there's not anywhere else, but there is a danger here. The convenience factor straight across from the parking lot, straight to the door. I understand that too, so. But I do have concerns with pushing people out and giving a false pretense of security.
I believe both of those were put in years ago, I mean, well before any of us have been on this commission.
Let me ask you this, then. Is it Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
I'm
Yep.
sorry. Would there be any way that we could get maybe a sign that says slow children or slow crossing or something like that? Is that any possibility that we could do? Just, if we can't do a crosswalk, which I totally understand that, and I respect that, and thank you for your time to listen to me, but is there any way that we could put any signage up, or is that something that we would need to take care of?
Well, I mean, and certainly we have a concern with our buses, we're dropping
Correct.
students there as well. So I think we'd be open to some signage pieces. And again, with schools, we try to avoid the mid-block as well. I mean, we're
Okay.
a little bit into the same debate even with the Madison area when we talked about that, which is why we're focused on the south side of the road on 300 to come all the way down to the intersection. So I would say that's probably a better option. And even like the Zimmer crosswalk, I know it's not a ton of lights and infrastructure, but there are lights there. So whenever we do a mid-block, usually there's a lot more signage and lights, so I would agree with you, Joel. I think we should keep it at the intersection, but I'd be open to signs there,
Okay.
especially with us dropping students.
Okay.
Or at
Because I do
least-
know,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I do know
Yeah.
the buses stop, and if they're stopped, everybody
Everybody
has to
stops,
stop
yeah.
to get out and everything
Yeah.
else, and you've got to, yeah. So, well, I think I know your answer, but I appreciate you for listening.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it has been discussed before, not necessarily in this board, but something that has been brought up. I know I met with Dustin, I think that was last summer sometime, I believe it was, or maybe before that, but any other discussion there, or? Thank you for being here, appreciate it. Sorry we can't help you there, but maybe we can work with you on what type of signage you can put there, or, okay. Let's move on to committee and planning reports. Justin, Dustin, and anybody have anything from previous that we need to take a look at?
So I'll just kind of give you an update on the ordinance. We're kind of compiling some of those, the ordinances that need to be put in place. I spoke with Joel and Dustin today. We're going to actually have our tech review meeting next week, so it's on the agenda to kind of compile those, and then we'll evaluate as that stack, that list gets longer. We've probably got a handful right now that need to be input as ordinances. As that list gets more reasonable, obviously, we want to avoid what happened last time where there was a giant list that went to council. So we're going to evaluate whether or not that should happen in June or earlier. So once we get a little bit better of a handle, maybe a month or two into this year, we'll know whether or not we want to take those in June or earlier to council. So that's kind of where we're at with the.
Sounds like then we have another one for you to add to that.
Yeah,
for today.
we'll have one from today, and then a few that Joel's aware of, and a couple that from a new development around Gateway Grove area. So we'll have all those and maybe a couple more developments that are coming down the pipeline. So
And I ran through one the other day I may want to talk to you about as well, that I'm not sure is on that list, and we'll have to make sure, I make myself a note, so we'll go through that later. All right. Any other matters that may come before the board?
I was just going to jump back from the previous instance. Has anybody on the commission received any reports since we've changed the cross traffic does not stop on Fort Wayne Street where we had the issues off of Maple and Fort Wayne intersection? Has anybody had any feedback on that or continued issues? Or does the signs seem to be helping?
I sent an email to the person that initially talked about that, and they seemed happy. That something was done there, and that we took a look at it, and they thanked us for taking a look at it. She had not had any issues at that point, but, you never know what's gonna happen any time of the day, or it could happen at any time.
Sure.
Any other matters that might come before the board?
Just real quick, over the last several days, we've been inundated with a lot of snow. I just wanted to publicly thank Dustin and your crew for doing an outstanding job.
I second
Thank
that.
Yes.
Yes, did a great job. Didn't put down a little snow, it put down a lot of snow for us.
Yeah, we had plenty to go around, but, yeah, our crews are still hauling snow piles out of neighborhoods and stuff, and probably, hopefully it'll finish up by the end of the week, but trying to get some of those big ugly snow piles out of everybody's neighborhoods so they have something a little brighter to look forward to.
Some of it'll be melting today, that'll help a little. Good point, Joel, thank you for saying that. Anything else? One thing I would like to mention, that we do have a regular scheduled meeting Wednesday, March 2nd. I will not be able to make an April meeting. Right now we have, so I'd like to cancel an April meeting if you don't mind. March meeting right now is scheduled for Wednesday, March 2nd. Do we have any problems with vacations or spring break or anything during that time? Good? Okay. Because I think the April meeting would be during spring break.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be there either.
All right. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Dustin, thank you. Second.
A second?
Cindy, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. We'll see you in March.
I gotta get a calendar with you guys.
Thanks, Louis.
Someone to talk about Eisenhower.
Thank you, Louis.
I know we're looking at long-term stuff on that, but we also have heard